You're watching Major League Baseball's virtual network. I'm Nicholas Callis. These are your game recaps and standing updates from Wednesday, April the 8th, 2020. Starting in the American League East, the Boston Red Sox continue to struggle in 2020, most recently losing to the Rays in this series 8-5. Jalen Beeks got the win, and Jose Alvarado got his first save of the season. He's not their closer, but one of their setup pitchers. The New York Yankees and the Orioles of Baltimore playing in an AL East game here. A game in which the Yankees scored 7 runs and shut out the Orioles. Masahiro Tanaka got the win. He's 2-0 now on the year, and Alex Cobb 0-2. Cobb expected to be one of the top pitchers this season for Baltimore and already has 2 losses. One of our games of the day here on Major League Baseball's virtual network. The Chicago White Sox beat the Seattle Mariners in a game that had an offensive frenzy for both teams. The Mariners scored in 4 different innings. The White Sox scored in 3, but they put up a couple crooked numbers and ended up getting 7 total runs. Lucas Giolito now has 3 wins on the year, and Justice Sheffield winless. He's 0-3 to start 2020 in the Mariners rotation. And Alex Colome now has 4 saves as the White Sox closer. Another AL Central game. The Kansas City Royals beat the Detroit Tigers 3-0, and the Tigers not starting off 2020 well. You'll see in the standings that they're in last place in the AL Central. Not many wins either. Danny Duffy, 2-1 now in the year, and Jordan Zimmerman, 1-2. Both of those pitchers starters for each respective team. Another AL Central game. This one featured the Cleveland Indians and the Minnesota Twins. Twins won 5-4, and several different places that each of these teams scored in the game. The Twins just scored more runs than the Indians. They're 5-4 and won in the 9th on a walk-off. Moving to the AL West, our other game of the day here on Major League Baseball's virtual network. The Los Angeles Angels beat the Oakland Athletics 7-6 in extra innings. Daniel Mangden, despite getting the loss, pitched over 5 innings out of the bullpen, and he pitched into the 11th inning. Was responsible for giving up the 2 runs in that bottom of the 11th inning, but it was also a wonderful job by the Angels, a wonderful effort to come back and win that game. Despite being down in the 11th 6-5, they ended up coming back and winning thanks to Anthony Rendon hitting a 2-run double to end that one. Interleague baseball here, it's the New York Mets and the Houston Astros. This game was won by the Mets 6-0. The Astros, who started off the year strong, now slipping into the middle ground of the AL West. Jacob deGrom got the win. He's 2-0 now on the year, and Lance McCullers Jr., who got a no decision in his first start, now has a loss in 2 starts. Moving to the National League, the San Diego Padres, 11 runs on 11 hits, 5 runs in the first, 3 in the 7th, and the 8th inning. Braves couldn't come back at home, and the Braves continue to be on a hot streak. Mark Melancon got the loss, and Kirby Yates now has 6 saves as the Padres closer. Marlins Nationals and AL East matchup. Pablo Lopez got the loss, and Max Scherzer earned his first win of 2020 as the Nationals beat the Marlins 5-1. Marlins committed 2 errors in this game, contributing to their loss. NL Central game, the Pirates and the Cubs played each other. Joe Musgrove got his first win of the year. John Lester was hit with his first loss. And Keone Kela now with 3 saves on the year. Pirates won 2-1. Each team had 8 hits. Dodgers and Cardinals. This game was won by the Dodgers thanks to Walker Buehler and his pitching excellence. The Cardinals got shut out. Buehler now has 2 wins on the year, and Dakota Hudson, his first loss of 2020 as a member of the Cardinals starting rotation. Another interleague game that featured the Texas Rangers and the Colorado Rockies. The Rockies won by a significant margin earlier in this series, and the Rangers returned the favor in this game, scored 7 runs on 12 hits, and the Rockies could only muster a couple runs. Mike Minor got the win. Kyle Freeland got the loss. And an AL West matchup that featured the San Francisco Giants and the Arizona Diamondbacks, and the Giants continue their domination against the Diamondbacks, winning 1-0. Jarlin Garcia got the win, and Junior Guerra got the loss. Giants were able to score in the 9th inning and walk it off despite only getting 4 hits. The Diamondbacks scored no runs on 6 hits. And we'll check out the standings as of April the 8th, 2020. Starting in the American League East, the New York Yankees, now 8-4 after beating the Orioles on a 2-game winning streak, are in first place in the division. The Blue Jays and Rays each tied 6-6 is their records, 2 games back of the division. The Rays on the better side of a 6-6 record after winning 4 straight games. Blue Jays 2-game losing streak. The Orioles have lost 2 now to the Yankees in a row, and they're now 5-7. 3 games back of the division lead, and the Red Sox starting off slow, 2-11 to begin 2020, and have a losing streak stacked to 6 games now. In the American League Central, the Chicago White Sox have broken away a bit with the AL Central lead, 9-3 now on the year after winning its game against the Mariners today. The Minnesota Twins trailing closely behind, 1.5 games back on a 3-game winning streak. They're 8-5. Cleveland Indians on a 4-game losing streak now and falling further back in the standings, 2.5 games back of the AL Central lead. The Royals not too far behind either after winning 3 straight. They played their most recent series against the Tigers. They're now 6-5, 2.5 games back of the division lead. The Tigers on a 3-game losing streak and are another team now that has 10 wins. That's a rarity so far, but the Tigers struggling to begin 2020. And in the American League West, a tight race here, especially since the Angels beat the Athletics yesterday. So now the Rangers have sole possession of first place in the AL West, 7-5 record. That's because the Athletics lost. The Athletics, as of yesterday, or as of today, were the leaders in the AL West, but since they lost to the Angels today, they're now a half game back of the division lead. And then the Astros, losing to the Mets today, are now 1 game back of the division lead, 6-6 record, 2-game losing streak. And the Angels keep themselves away from last place, Oldies being alone in last place. They're 2.5 games back of the division, but are tied now with the Mariners, who lost to the White Sox today. They're both 5-8, 2.5 games back of the division. Wildcard standings, not quite important yet, but there's a visual of how they are developing. And to the National League, starting in the National League East, the Washington Nationals and Philadelphia Phillies each on a 2-game winning streak and each tied for the National League East lead. The Marlins on a 2-game losing streak. Those 2 games being lost to the Nationals. The Marlins now 7-6 and 1.5 games back of the division lead. The Braves on a 4-game losing streak, now 5-8 and 3.5 games back of the division, and they're tied for last with the New York Mets, who are 4-7, but still 3.5 games back of the division. The Mets on a 2-game winning streak against the Houston Astros. The National League Central, St. Louis Cardinals on top of the NL Central, despite losing to the Dodgers today. They're leaders in the NL Central. The Brewers a half game back on a 3-game winning streak, 7-4 is their record. The Chicago Cubs just lost to the Pirates today, and they're 1 game back of the division with a 7-5 record. The Pirates 2 games back, got a win against the Cubs today. They're 6-6, and the Reds on a 4-game losing streak fall further behind in the standings. The Reds are 3-8, 4.5 games back of the division. And in the National League West, this division is becoming tough, mainly because the Padres are on a 7-game winning streak, and have caught fire to start 2020. 11-2 record, leaders in the NL West. The San Francisco Giants just beat the Arizona Diamondbacks today, but they're still 3.5 games back of the Padres. The Dodgers beat the Cardinals today. Dodgers come back to a .500 winning percentage. They're 6-6, 4.5 games back of the division. The Arizona Diamondbacks, 5-8 record, 6 games back of the division after losing to the Giants today. And the Rockies broke their losing streak yesterday against the Rangers, but fell victim to the Rangers again today. And they're 2-10, 8.5 games back of the NL West lead. And not the wildcard standings are important at this point in the season. They're pretty close as expected, but here's a display of where they are. This has been your game recaps and your standing updates from Wednesday, April the 8th, 2020. I'm Nicholas Callis. You've been watching Major League Baseball's Virtual Network.